How do you take one of the best horror movies of all time and ruin it? And of course, I'm talking about The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Yes, The Exorcist. A pleasant little story about a little girl who gets possessed by a demon. It was released in theaters December 26, 1973, and is regarded as one of the greatest horror movies of all time. It was made with a budget of $12 million and took in $441 million at the box office. So this movie got a lot of people's attention and money. And at the time, it was a very unique horror movie. This movie wasn't about a haunted house or some big scary monster chasing you around. No, this movie was about a child who gets possessed by a demon. So this movie got a lot of heat, and there was no shortage of controversy. And if you've seen the movie, then you know that there's really not any way to squeeze a sequel out of it. It's just not that kind of movie, and nobody wanted a sequel, but we got one anyway with Exorcist 2, The Heretic. To the dismay of everyone and at the behest of absolutely no one, this was released in theaters June 17th, 1977. And though it did well at the box office, this was a critical failure, and everyone hated it.
Fucking hated it.
In fact, at one of the movie's premieres, audience members got so angry at this film that they actually chased Warner Brothers executives down the street. I mean, I've seen bad movies before, but this one is so bad it just pisses you off. Nobody wanted a sequel to The Exorcist. It doesn't need a sequel. Everybody was okay with having just one Exorcist movie. And the movie has since been deemed one of the worst films of all time. I mean, on its face, it seems okay. And you got the poster, okay, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, all right. Wendell Blair's in it, okay. Everything's okay so far. And then you watch the movie, and it quickly cascades into a fever dream. The director of the first Exorcist film called this movie the worst piece of crap he's ever seen, and that it was a horrible sequel that diminished the value of the original film. Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that actually likes this movie. And James Earl Jones is in this, and I think everybody forgets about that, and I'm sure he would like to as well. And I just have a feeling that if you were ever to meet James Earl Jones and ask him about this movie, he would probably hit you with a chair. James Earl Jones is terrific in everything he's in, but even he couldn't pull the nose up on this movie. When people make the assumption that sequels suck, I'm pretty sure they're thinking about Exorcist 2. This movie fucking sucks. Fucking sucks! But despite the fact that everybody hates this movie and nobody asked for it, it was still released on VHS in 1980 by Warner Brothers Home Video. And this is in their famous Warner Brothers clamshell. Also, it was released in 1988 and again in 1993. So there's 3 different distributions of this movie. What the fuck? Why? Regardless of my personal opinion, it's still true. And the 1980 distribution is very hard to find nowadays. So, in spite of the fact that nobody likes this movie, it's still a very sought-after VHS tape. Makes no sense. VHS collectors are so weird, and I gotta have this. But the 1988 and the 1993 distributions are easy to find, and they're relatively cheap. Shit, they should be free. They should pay me to take them. So, how does one recover from such a shitstorm of a movie? Well, you'd think the smart thing to do would be just forget about it, hope that time is kind to you, and for God's sakes, don't make another sequel. Or you can do the exact opposite, which is totally what they did with Exorcist 3. This was released in theaters August 17th, 1990. And against all odds, this actually paid off. This is nowhere near as shitty as Exorcist 2. Even though it sort of feels like a made-for-TV movie, it's still pretty good. Certainly underrated, and there's plenty of creepy shit.
Creepy shit.
Creepy shit.
Creepy shit.
This one has a lot to do with the first movie, and thankfully nothing to do with the second one. In fact, this should have been Exorcist 2, and Exorcist 2 should not have even been made. But since it was, it should have been called Exorcist 2, the horribly written movie with Locust and James Earl Jones acts really weird. And Exorcist 3 should have been called Exorcist 3, This is actually Exorcist 2. Exorcist 3 was released on VHS by CBS Fox Home Video in 1991, and that's it. It only has this one VHS distribution. And you know what really burns my cookies? Is the fact that Exorcist 3 is actually a decent movie, but only has one VHS. But the piece of shit that is Exorcist 2 has 3 different distributions. Hey, it doesn't matter what kind of box it's in. If you put dog shit in a box, it's still dog shit in a box.
Watch the full episode here, as well as other classic Cat Manners VHS pirate ship adventures. And please hit subscribe.